Less than 2 weeks away from the Super Bowl in Los Angeles between the Rams and the Bengals, but that's not what football fans are talking about. The big story now, a bombshell lawsuit filed by Brian Flores, the former head coach of the Miami Dolphins. Now, we told you last night that the 40-year-old coach is suing the NFL, the New York Giants, the Denver Broncos, and the Miami Dolphins. He alleges racial discrimination in the hiring process involving coaches. Flores was set to interview with the Giants, but learned ahead of time, allegedly through a text message from the New England Patriots coach Bill Belichick, that the role had already been filled. The lawsuit goes on to detail pay-to-lose game claims in Miami and previous job interviews where team representatives may have been disingenuous in the hiring process. Joining me now is David Gottlieb, one of the attorneys representing Coach Brian Flores. David, thanks for being with us tonight.
Thank you for having me.
So why did Coach Flores decide to come forward now?
Well, Coach Flores has been in the league for a while, and so this is certainly not the first situation that he's had dealing with discrimination. But what happened was he was, really unceremoniously fired from the Dolphins after a successful season, a winning season. And then he was interviewing for a job with the Giants, for their head coaching job, which is really his dream job. He's from New York. And he learned before he was even interviewed, through what's now become very famous text messages from Bill Belichick, that the decision to hire somebody else, Brian Daboll, was already made before he was even interviewed. So he received text messages from Bill Belichick congratulating him on getting the job. Those text messages were intended for Brian Daboll. And that was 3 days before he was even interviewed. So clearly Belichick had inside information, as an insider that he is, that the decision to hire Daboll had been made, and they were still going forward with interviewing Flores to create, some false appearance of compliance with the Rooney Rule.
Did he ever at any point in time think he shouldn't go on the interview because of the information that came to light?
Well, he's really an optimist, and this is something that he said in other interviews, and he had maybe an unreasonable level of hope that he should still go forward with the interview and maybe he would get this job. But it's clear that he never had a chance at it. He went forward with the interview. He didn't get the job. And so, to answer your question, why did he step forward now? Try to put yourself in his shoes, the level of humiliation to know that you're only being interviewed for a job because of the color of your skin so that the team can comply with this Rooney Rule. That was really for him the straw that broke the camel's back and made him feel that he had to take this step.
Well, the Rooney Rule has been mentioned several times in this lawsuit. It's 20 years old this year, and as well-intentioned as it is, it does have a lot of flaws. How does Coach Flores want to reshape the Rooney Rule to change the hiring practices in the NFL? How do you improve that policy?
Well, the Rooney Rule, yes, well-intended, intended to provide opportunities for more diverse candidates for coaching positions and leadership positions, but it hasn't worked, as you said. There's only one black coach, and there were 3 20 years ago when the Rooney Rule went into effect. And many other data points reflect that it has not had its intended impact. So what we've proposed in the lawsuit is that there be a series of what's called injunctive relief steps, actions that the NFL, the league, and its owners can take to help improve diversity. And the Rooney Rule may or may not be a part of that. It could be kept in a modified form, but the answer clearly is not the Rooney Rule. There needs to be an overhaul, a mass change to the way the NFL conducts interviews and conducts its hiring and employment practices to allow for a more diverse inclusion in these leadership positions. But the first step in that is that the NFL and its owners need to listen. They need to be open to listening to what others have to say, to what Mr. Flores has to say, what other Black people, the experiences they have, what they have to say. They need to be willing to look inward and have introspection, Because the first step is there needs to be an openness to having a dialogue. And from there, there's, in the complaint, we've laid out many steps that can be taken to affect meaningful change.
Well, in the lawsuit, it accuses the NFL of racism and compared the league to being run like a plantation. And I want to quote the exact language that was used here. Its 32 owners, none of whom are black, profit substantially from the labor of NFL players, 70% of whom are black. The owners watch the games from atop NFL stadiums in their luxury boxes, while their majority black workforce put their bodies on the line every Sunday, taking vicious hits and suffering debilitating injuries to their bodies and their brains, while the NFL and its ownership reap billions of dollars. Is that really fair, comparing the NFL to forced slavery? These NFL star athletes, celebrities, a lot of them make millions of dollars and love and enjoy what they do.
Well, but there are aspects to it that do mirror the plantation. I mean, the quote that you just read is fact. It's fact that 32 team owners and none are black. It's fact that 70% of the workforce, the labor, is black. Yet when you look at leadership positions and coaching positions, and to be very clear, coaching positions come from the players. Virtually all coaches are former players. Yet of 32 teams, only 3 black quarterback coaches, only 4 black offensive coordinators, 1 black head coach, 6 black GMs. So, this is a problem, and the NFL needs to look at this seriously, and it needs to address it. And to this point, they haven't. So, whether anybody likes that particular comparison is up to them, but this is a major problem, a serious problem that the NFL needs to finally take seriously. This is long overdue.
Well, one of the most explosive claims in your suit is Miami Dolphins owner Stephen Ross allegedly telling Coach Flores that he would pay him $100,000 for each game that the team lost to ultimately be put in a better draft position. Now, tanking in pro sports, not a new concept here, but there's never been direct evidence of it in the NFL. How do you expect the competition committee in the NFL to respond to this, and what should happen if the claim is investigated by the league?
Well, that's really a question for the NFL, and I'm not going to say what the NFL and its competition committee should do. When you look at what the NFL has done with other instances of misconduct, deflating footballs and the like, they investigate these things very seriously, and I hope they do the same here and don't treat it differently just because it arose in the context of a discrimination lawsuit. But our case, what we're seeking is change with respect to the hiring practices, the retention practices, with respect to black coaches and general managers. What the NFL does with the various other aspects of misconduct is something that they need to address internally.
Well, we're running out of time. I want to get to this last question, though. Do you think that this active lawsuit may persuade teams to hire more coaches of color in this year's hiring cycle? I know there are several openings right now.
Well, I think the lawsuit provides an opportunity, right? It can go in one of 2 directions. The league can dig in its heels, and its owners can dig in their heels and make the same mistakes that they made with the Colin Kaepernick situation, who, of course, never got a job again. So, Brian Flores has interviewed for other jobs. What we would hope is that an NFL team would show the same sort of courage and leadership that Brian himself showed by stepping forward and filing this lawsuit, and hire him. And of course, there's other candidates as well for other jobs, but and hire him, even though he's filing this lawsuit, not hold it against him. That would be a real act of courage and leadership by an NFL owner. They should take this opportunity to do that rather than continue the mistakes of the past.
David Gottlieb, thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you for having me.